Welcome to the Word for 2022. Today we're in 2 Kings chapter 4. In this chapter, there are 4 miracles that take place that God performs through the prophet Elijah. The first miracle is where oil is multiplied. The second is where a dead boy is resurrected. The third miracle, poison in a pot is transformed. And then the last miracle, bread is multiplied. Each miracle starts with a problem. In fact, every miracle highlights the fact that God is able to do anything, that nothing is too difficult for Him. Also, as we read these miracles, we have to understand that God works through obedience. As we read the first miracle, it starts with a widow who has a need. Her husband was a prophet, but he passed away. She and her 2 boys are now in debt. Collectors are coming to collect on that debt. They're wanting to take her 2 boys away to become slaves in order to pay off the debt. In desperation, the widow comes to Elisha and asks for help. She's asking for God's help, but she's going through the prophet Elijah. The prophet asks her, "What do you have?" Her answer, just a little bit of oil. In verse 3, he tells her, "Go around and ask your neighbors for empty jars. Don't ask for a few." The implication is, expect an abundance. This was the understanding. Your faith and your obedience will determine your outcome. The choice was hers. When they had gone around and collected jars, then they went in, closed the door behind them, and then they started taking that little bit of oil they had and putting it into these other jars. Well, the jars continued to be filled up with oil until the very last jar was filled. When the last jar was filled, we read that she said, "Bring me another." But the answer was, "There are no more," and the miracle stopped. Can you imagine the surprise, the shock, and the joy, the excitement that was there as they were filling one jar after another? As little became much. They were witnessing a miracle. They were witnessing God's provision, and they were witnessing God's grace. I wonder if that very moment she started to ask, if only I had asked for more. If only I hadn't stopped. If only I would have believed for more. However, as we read about this miracle, the woman and her 2 boys, they did 4 things. First, they asked for God's help. Second, they had to make a decision. Would they obey or would they not? Third, they had to humble themselves, go ask their neighbors for help. But then number 4, they had to work. They had to do their part. And what was the result? God supplied. They had a story to tell. They had a testimony. Their neighbors also heard about God's provision, which then gave them an invitation to step out in faith and to believe God. And then lastly, God got the glory. It's always been said, no test, no testimony. When we have a problem, it's always an opportunity for our faith to grow. It's always an opportunity to reach others and to bring glory to God. But seeing God work in our lives, it always starts with obedience. Thank you for joining the Word for 2022.